I'm doing this video because, to be honest, man, black women are near and dear to my heart. I was raised by black women, been married to black women, and that's all I know. And there's some things about black women for me that are truly, truly remarkable. And I can't really speak for other races, so this isn't to down other races. Let's think about the position that the black women have been in since we were shipped here as black people. The black woman has been in the position of sacrificing, even for the man. I can't really fathom or understand the psychology of a woman whose natural nature is to look to her father, to her brother, to a man who, to look to any man who has a basic sense of justice, and to realize that she's not going to be protected in this instance. What does that do to her, right? And so we go into slavery, right? So we go into slavery, and now we have a similar problem. And we're working in the plantation, we're working on the field, we're in the fields, and then certain women are requested to come to the house. And then those women are sometimes threatened that, if you don't acquiesce, if you don't perform, if you don't do what I ask, then I'm gonna break your family up. I'm gonna separate you. In many cases it happened anyway, but in some cases, let's just think about this scenario. I'm gonna separate you from your family. Now, as a woman, your instinct maternally is, I gotta keep my kids close to me. As a woman, your instinct maternally is, if I can keep my husband close to my child, we have a better chance of having a basic kind of life, even from a slavery perspective. So again, here's a woman who has to sacrifice more than the man in this instance. And this was used over and over again by making the woman have to sacrifice even more than the man. And the man have to sit and watch it. It is both humiliating and emasculating and divisive to a family for them to watch that. So we got to remember that from a systematic standpoint, men and women were divided. It's like black women have been in a war, right? A long war, and this war has been going on for the last 400 something years, non-stop, right? And bullets are flying everywhere. Bullets are flying, going everywhere, right? And they're in their bunker, right? And many times they've had to jump in the bunker by themselves, right? And bullets are flying everywhere. And oftentimes they got 2-3 children, and bullets are flying everywhere. And every once in a while they gotta peep their head out because they still gotta go get food for their children. And so they gotta get their guns, right? And they gotta shoot through, right? That's intense though. That's traumatizing. And many of them, amazingly and miraculously, shoot through, get what they gotta get, and get back into the bunker. And then, every once in a while, a brother will come and he'll promise, I'm not gonna let you do this alone. I'm gonna shield you. And then half the time, he's lying. He's not gonna shield her because he's been taught to get what he wants and leave once he got what he wants. His excuse is she's disagreeable too much, or she argues too much, or she fight too much. And maybe she does fight sometimes. Look, I'm gonna keep it real. Let's keep it real. She does fight sometimes. But you gotta remember why she fights. And here's my problem. Listen, everyone can't handle a veteran of survival like who the black woman is. Everyone can't handle the veteran of survival that the black woman is. Listen, if you can't handle it, there's no compulsion in what relationship you get or which relationship you have, right? I'm not one of those people who's like, you should only be with black women. No, if you find somebody. But what I will not stand for, what I will fight, is this idea that you can talk about black women as if they are somehow something inherently wrong with them without talking about the struggle. If you empathize with the struggle that they've had, if you empathize with the fact that they've been fighting all their life since they were a baby, that they've been fighting off molestation, that they've been fighting off people trying to use them for what they could get and leave, that they've learned at a very early age how to navigate that. And so when your immature ass gets with them, that you can't understand why she can cut to the chase and get to the point and knows when you bullshitting because she's had to deal with bullshit all her life. What you think? So listen, it ain't easy. And sometimes it's off the hook, and sometimes you don't deserve to bear the brunt. As a man, you don't deserve to bear the brunt and the battle that she had to deal with someone before her. But you gotta understand, she's been fighting a war by herself, and then in many cases been teased when someone came and said they would fight it with her, only to betray her after a certain amount of time and tell her that she wasn't worth it and something wrong with her and X, Y, and Z. And again, like I said, listen, she's had to survive. So if black women act a little different from other women from other cultures, it may be because the position that we put her in, because we are not a community, because black men have failed largely to create a large community that oversees, that can create a nurturing, safe space for that black woman to be more in her femininity, because we have not focused on creating that. And even those who have gained affluence and money, we have decided to stay individualistic and focus on protecting our money over building a community so that there could be a swath of protection over our daughters, over our wives. And because of that, she has to fend for herself. And when you have to fend for yourself, sometimes you can't tell the enemy from the friend. So listen, if you can't handle it, move on, but don't disparage. Don't act like there's something just wrong with her and it just got there out of the thin blue air. No, we are all connected and we all play a part in the survival and the upliftment and the strength of each other. And this is only for the people who disparage black women. Again, I want to reiterate that we also have to stop falling into these traps of taking the extreme worst of a group and making them the standard. 85% of black men marry black women, which means we don't have an epidemic of black men not marrying black women. But we do have an epidemic of single black women. Black women can get very much to the point at a much earlier age because they've been dealing with this since they were little. They've been taking the time and learning how to survey the area and do that. Like I said, they've been in the bunker, they've been training, they understand how to dodge the bullets, they understand how to survive regardless of that, right? And because we made a society where black men don't necessarily have to do that, even down to the point where you got a lot of guys who are still living with their mothers and 30, 40 years old. A lot of guys who are still playing video games 6-7 hours a day, but they're not doing anything when it comes to work. See, the bottom line is, it's not that black men, it's true that black men have been suppressed. You know, let's be real about that. Let's be real about the fact that black men have, the opportunities that black men have been suppressed. But the problem is when we've given up and given into that depression and that, and then therefore spent so much time, wasting our time, not getting in the books, not training our mind, not training our hearts, not putting our hearts into exercise. Our hearts are like, your heart is like a muscle. You use it, your brain is like a muscle. You use it or you lose it, right? So if black men are put in a situation where they're not learning how to discipline themselves, they're not learning how to be in situations where, okay, you know what, the going gets tough, but at the end of the day, I'm gonna stick to it, right? They're not in situations where they have to be responsible despite the pain. But when a woman who's, you know, if you're a woman and you're single, you know, and especially if you have children, just having to fend for yourself requires you to have to use your mind, to have to use your heart. But I'm not asking somebody to deal with something they can't deal with. You as an individual know that, right? But but acknowledge that sometimes it's just about the fact that you can't deal with the pain and you had to move on. And as long as she's not accosting you, as long as she's not going after you, as long as she's not trying to put hurt on you, you be grateful for the fact that she was willing to do that. You don't go and then disparage them and speak bad about them publicly just because your heart is broke. Because at the end of the day, the real deal and what's really going on is that you're upset and ashamed of yourself, ashamed of the fact that you weren't able to really withstand what was going on. And in many cases, a lot of guys will then come back to the woman later and be like, man, you taught me so much, I didn't realize it. But they're 45, 55 years old because it took them that much longer. So what is the solution to this, right? As parents, first of all, if we're exposing our children to both the education that is provided for us in this country and we're providing our children, or we're allowing our children to digest the basic media, whether that be television, whether that be radio, then understand that by the time those children become adults, then they're already programmed to a large extent to choose white, not just women, but white in general, as a superior thing, as more trustworthy, as more attractive, and it goes from there. One of the things that happens with a lot of young black males, especially if they're in situations where they don't have fathers or mentors, is that their feelings are allowed to be the leaders. A man's feelings cannot be his leader if he is to be disciplined enough to protect and take care of his family. So now, if he actually is able to prosper, and here's the crazy thing about it, the prosperous black men who don't ever learn how to discipline their feelings end up being the worst when it comes to actually talking about black women, because they become entitled and they think that their way was good when it was not, and they're fooled by that, right? But again, let's just think about this fact. Black women have been in the bunker. Black women have been in the forefront of the battle. Oftentimes, black women have put their bodies on the line, put their bodies in front to protect their husbands and to protect their children, and they've been doing it since slavery. And if a black woman is tired as a result of that cellular memory, then why blame her? How could you blame her? If you're not equipped to be able to kind of deal with the patience of that particular pain, then understand that that's what's going on. Many of them now are at the point where if we come to them and say we want to help, it's not just going to come automatically. And why would it? What human being, after going through a struggle and going through many broken promises, and then someone else comes and that person doesn't know this person, and the woman doesn't know this person, what human being would automatically turn her trust over when she knows that what she has to do to take care of herself, her heart, and her family, this life and death is a life and death matter? And if she just trusts that it could literally mean her succumbing to depression, to death, to drugs, or whatever, or her surviving and thriving, right? And a black woman, if we really look at what black women have been through, then we would all be extremely and eternally grateful for their sacrifice. If there's any sentiment that I have for black women in the struggle, it is, I am grateful for your sacrifice. Realize the worth of taking the time to gain that trust. What you will find in a black woman is a jewel, a beautiful woman, a woman who, in my mind, has amazing balance in sexuality, amazing balance in beauty, outer beauty, amazing balance in intelligence, amazing balance in concern and care. You will find a mother who looks after her child in a way you've probably never ever seen. You will find someone who cares for cleanliness. Their intuition and intelligence are amazing, and therefore she wants him to catch up. And you know what? One of the reasons why I think sometimes black women may become frustrated with black men is because she sees his potential. She sees his brilliance, and she sees what God gave him as well, and she wants to see that come out. And sometimes when it doesn't come out as fast as she might like, it's frustrating, and I get that. But the only way that the potential of the black man is going to come out is that we have to start exercising those muscles, our brains, and we have to start using our hearts. What does that mean? It means that commitment cannot be taken for granted. One of the ways that men can deal with and break the chains of ignoring their hearts and ignoring what they should be ignoring and shirking responsibility is that they continue. Even if you fail at commitment, you try to commit again. If you fail at commitment, you try to commit again. If you fail at commitment, you try to commit again. And in between that time, you abstain from taking the pleasure without the sacrifice and the commitment.
Somber, like the boy who wasn't told about the class slumber. You tough it out for your kids, or so you say, but you still show up drunk to nearly every birthday. Overall demeanor, shades of blue and gray, and the kids request that you don't come to parent day. You say, ain't it enough that I'm bringing home my pay? Never have to worry about loans or layaways. We can put on the phone like everything's okay. Cover up the pain, too scared to make a change. The wedding cost 50 grand, was it all in vain? Now you're swerving in the deadbeat dad lane.